Hey everyone, and a huge, warm welcome back to the channel. Seriously, it's fantastic to see you. Before we journey deep into the heart of an ancient giant, I want to take a quick moment to send you all the very best. I genuinely hope you're feeling healthy, strong, and ready for an absolutely epic story today. Take good care of yourselves. Close your eyes for a second. Picture an empire. What do you see? Maybe Roman legions marching. Pyramids rising from the desert. Now, erase that. Imagine something vaster. Imagine a realm so enormous it swallowed up nearly half of all the people living on the entire planet at the time. An empire stretching from the scorching sands of Egypt and Libya, across the mighty rivers of Mesopotamia, over the snow-capped mountains of the Caucasus, through the vast steppes of Central Asia, all the way to the wild frontiers of India and the sparkling shores of Greece. This wasn't just big. It was the first true superpower, a colossus that dominated the ancient world for over 2 centuries. But here's the twist: this empire, the mighty Persian Empire, is often remembered in the West mostly as the bad guys, the faceless horde defeated by 300 Spartans. That simplistic picture? It's dead wrong. The real story of Persia is a breathtaking tale of monumental scale, revolutionary ideas, dazzling engineering, and astonishing tolerance that literally changed the course of human history. Get ready to meet the Achaemenid Empire, the world's first superpower, and perhaps its most surprising. Our story starts not with Persia itself, but with the world it conquered. For centuries before Persia rose, the dominant power in the Near East was the Median Empire, centered in what is now northwestern Iran. To the west lay the crumbling might of Assyria, famous for its terrifying brutality, and the ancient kingdoms of Babylonia and Lydia, rich in culture and gold. Down south was the ancient land of Egypt, always a powerhouse. This was a world of warring kingdoms, shifting alliances, and constant tension. Then, around 550 BC, a game-changer emerged from the region of Parsa, modern Fars province in Iran: Cyrus the Great. Cyrus wasn't just a conqueror, he was a strategic genius and a ruler unlike any the world had seen before. He united the Persian tribes, then turned against his own overlords, the Medes. In a stunning move, he didn't just defeat the Median king, he won over the Median nobility. This pattern became his signature. He marched west and confronted the fabulously wealthy King Croesus of Lydia. Legend says the oracle at Delphi told Croesus that if he attacked Cyrus, a great empire would fall. Croesus attacked, and a great empire did fall, his own. Cyrus conquered Lydia, famously capturing Croesus. But instead of executing him, the usual practice, Cyrus reportedly spared him and kept him as an advisor. This was just the beginning. Cyrus then set his sights on the greatest prize of all, Babylon. The mighty city, ruled by King Nabonidus, was a fortress. But Cyrus didn't just lay siege. He positioned himself as a liberator. He exploited discontent within Babylon, where Nabonidus was unpopular, and presented himself as chosen by the Babylonian god Marduk to restore order and tradition. In 539 BC, Babylon's gates swung open without a massive battle. Cyrus marched in, not as a destroyer, but as a restorer. He famously allowed the Jewish people, who had been exiled to Babylon decades earlier by the Babylonians themselves, to return to Jerusalem and rebuild their temple. This act alone cemented his reputation for tolerance in the ancient world. Cyrus didn't just conquer, he built an entirely new system for running an empire. This was revolutionary. Before Persia, empires like Assyria ruled through terror and brute force, deporting populations and crushing rebellions with extreme violence. Cyrus flipped the script. He realized you couldn't control such a vast, diverse territory just by fear. His approach was based on pragmatic tolerance and local autonomy. He allowed conquered peoples to keep their own languages, religions, customs, and local leaders. As long as they paid their taxes, provided soldiers when needed, and remained loyal to the King of Kings, the Persian Emperor, they were largely left alone to manage their own affairs. Think about that. Egyptians could still worship Ammon-Ra, Babylonians could still pray to Marduk. Jews could rebuild their temple in Jerusalem. Greeks in Ionian cities could largely govern themselves. This was unheard of. Cyrus formalized this philosophy on the famous Cyrus Cylinder, a clay document often called the world's first charter of human rights. While that's a slightly modern interpretation, it does declare policies of religious freedom, abolishing forced labor, and allowing displaced peoples to return home, radical ideas for the time. It was less about individual rights as we know them and more about the rights of conquered peoples to maintain their identity under Persian rule. This policy wasn't just nice, it was brilliantly effective. It reduced rebellion, fostered stability, and allowed the empire to function smoothly. Cyrus died fighting nomadic tribes in Central Asia, but he left behind the blueprint for Persian power. Cyrus's successors built the empire into the awe-inspiring structure it became. His son, Cambyses II, successfully conquered Egypt, adding the Nile Valley to the Persian domains. But the real architect of the empire's peak was Darius I, also known as Darius the Great, who came to power after a period of turmoil. Darius was an organizational mastermind. He took Cyrus's ideas and created a sophisticated imperial machine. To manage the colossal empire, Darius divided it into about 20 to 30 provinces called satrapies. Each satrapy was governed by a satrap, essentially a governor, often chosen from the Persian nobility or sometimes a trusted local prince. But Darius was smart. He didn't give the satrap absolute power. He appointed a separate military commander for the province, loyal directly to the king, to keep the satrap's ambitions in check. He also sent out royal inspectors, known as the King's Eyes or King's Ears, who traveled incognito throughout the empire, reporting directly back to the king on how the satraps were performing, if taxes were being collected fairly, and if the people were content. This system of checks and balances was remarkably advanced. Darius also standardized something crucial: money. He introduced the daric, a gold coin of reliable purity and weight, and the siglos, a silver coin. This was one of the first major, empire-wide coinage systems. Imagine trying to trade across lands from India to Greece before this, barter, or trusting various local, often debased, coins. The daric became a trusted currency, massively boosting trade and economic activity across the empire. You could buy goods in Egypt with coins minted in Persia and know their value. Darius also standardized weights and measures, another huge boost for commerce. How do you rule an empire bigger than the moon is wide? You need to move fast. Messages, troops, officials, trade goods, all needed to cross vast distances. Darius tackled this with one of the Persian Empire's most legendary achievements, the Royal Road. This wasn't just a dirt path, it was a meticulously engineered highway stretching over 2,500 kilometers, about 1,500 miles, from the capital Susa in modern Iran, all the way to Sardis near the Aegean coast of Turkey. Think of it as the ancient interstate system. It was paved in many sections, had bridges over rivers, way stations for supplies, and guard posts for safety. But the real genius was the mounted courier system. Darius established relay stations along the Royal Road, spaced roughly a day's ride apart. At each station, fresh horses and riders were waiting. A royal messenger would ride his horse at top speed to the next station, hand off the message to a fresh rider on a fresh horse, who would then gallop to the next, and so on. It said a message could travel the entire length of the royal road from Susa to Sardis in just 7 days, a journey that would normally take caravans 3 months. Herodotus, the Greek historian, famously wrote, "There is nothing in the world that travels faster than these Persian couriers. Neither snow nor rain nor heat nor gloom of night stays these couriers from the swift completion of their appointed rounds." Sound familiar? That's essentially the unofficial motto of the U.S. Postal Service, inspired by the Persian system. This network didn't just carry royal mail, it secured the empire, sped up administration, and boosted trade immensely. The Persians were also incredible builders and engineers, reflecting the power and majesty of the King of Kings. Darius founded a magnificent new ceremonial capital, Persepolis, meaning city of the Persians. Built on a massive artificial terrace, Persepolis wasn't really an administrative center like Susa or a military base. It was a place for grand ceremonies, especially the annual New Year festival, Nowruz, where representatives from every corner of the empire would come bearing tribute. The scale was staggering. Imagine approaching a grand staircase lined with intricate relief carvings showing delegations from all the subject nations, Medes, Babylonians, Egyptians, Greeks, Indians, Ethiopians, Scythians, each depicted in their distinctive dress, bringing gifts to the king. It was a powerful visual symbol of the empire's vastness and diversity, all united under Persian rule. The palaces themselves, like the Apadana, audience hall, were supported by colossal columns topped with intricate capitals shaped like bulls or griffins. The engineering skill required to quarry, transport, and erect these massive stones was immense. Beyond grand palaces, Persian engineering tackled practical problems. They mastered underground irrigation canals called qanats. These were tunnels dug deep into hillsides to tap groundwater, gently sloping downhill to bring water to arid plains and cities without it evaporating. Some qanats stretched for dozens of kilometers and are still in use in Iran today. They built sophisticated bridges and canals. Darius even completed a canal linking the Nile River to the Red Sea, a precursor to the Suez Canal. This focus on infrastructure wasn't just for show, it was vital for feeding cities, supplying armies, and connecting the empire. The spiritual heart of the early Persian Empire was the religion founded by the prophet Zoroaster, or Zarathustra, known as Zoroastrianism. While Cyrus and his successors didn't force Zoroastrianism on their subjects, remember their tolerance, it heavily influenced Persian royal ideology and ethics. Zoroastrianism was radically different from the polytheistic religions of Greece, Egypt, or Mesopotamia. It proposed a cosmic struggle between a single, supreme, benevolent creator god, Ahura Mazda, the wise lord, and an opposing destructive force, Engra Mainyu, Ahriman. It emphasized concepts like free will, the importance of truth, Asha, over falsehood, Daryuj, good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. Fire was seen as a sacred symbol of Ahura Mazda's light and truth, leading to the famous fire temples. Crucially, Zoroastrianism introduced the idea of a final judgment, heaven and hell, and a savior figure who would eventually triumph over evil. This dualistic worldview, the emphasis on moral choice, and the concept of a single supreme God had a profound influence, potentially shaping later Jewish, Christian, and Islamic thought. The Persian kings saw themselves as agents of Ahura Mazda, appointed to bring order and truth to the world against the forces of chaos and falsehood. This divine mandate underpinned their authority and their self-perception as righteous rulers. For all its tolerance and brilliance, the Persian Empire wasn't invincible. Its sheer size was also its greatest vulnerability. Revolts did happen, especially in distant provinces like Egypt or Ionia, Greek cities on the coast of Asia Minor. Managing such a vast realm, with slow communication despite the royal road, was incredibly challenging. Satraps could become corrupt or ambitious. Different cultures and peoples didn't always mesh smoothly. But the most famous challenge came from the west, Greece. The Ionian Greek cities, part of the Persian Empire, revolted in 499 BC. Athens and another Greek city-state, Eretria, sent some help. This infuriated Darius. He saw it as rebellion within his empire, aided by outsiders. Thus began the Greco-Persian Wars. Darius sent a massive expedition in 490 BC to punish Athens and Eretria. Eretria was destroyed. The Persians landed at Marathon, near Athens. Against overwhelming odds, the Athenian hoplites, heavily armed infantry, charged the Persian lines and won a stunning victory. Darius died before he could launch another invasion. His son, Xerxes I, vowed revenge. In 480 BC, he assembled one of the largest invasion forces the ancient world had ever seen, hundreds of thousands of soldiers and over 1,000 ships. The Greeks, led by Sparta and Athens, formed a fragile alliance. The first major stand was at the pass of Thermopylae. King Leonidas of Sparta and his 300 elite bodyguards, plus several thousand other Greeks, held the narrow pass against the Persian horde for 3 days, fighting to the last man. This legendary stand, while a tactical defeat, became a powerful symbol of Greek courage and resistance. Simultaneously, the Greek navy fought the Persians at sea near Artemisium. While the Persians eventually broke through at Thermopylae and marched on Athens, which had been evacuated, the decisive blow came at the naval battle of Salamis. The outnumbered Greek fleet, using their superior maneuverability in the narrow straits, destroyed much of the Persian navy. Xerxes, watching from a throne on shore, reportedly fled back to Asia. His remaining army was defeated the next year at the Battle of Plataea. The Persian invasion of mainland Greece had failed spectacularly. This series of events, especially Thermopylae, cemented the image of Persia as the overwhelming, despotic East versus the freedom-loving Greek West in Western historical memory, an image that, as we've seen, oversimplifies the complex reality of Persia. Despite the defeat in Greece, the Persian Empire remained the dominant power in the Near East for another 150 years. Xerxes and his successors continued to rule their vast domains from magnificent capitals like Persepolis and Susa. They faced internal intrigues, palace coups, and occasional revolts, but the system Darius perfected proved remarkably resilient. The empire remained staggeringly wealthy, a hub of trade connecting Asia, Africa, and Europe. Goods, ideas, and technologies flowed along its roads and sea lanes. Persian culture, administrative practices, and artistic styles influenced the lands they ruled and neighbors beyond. However, no empire lasts forever. By the mid-4th century BC, the Persian Empire, while still enormous, was showing signs of internal weakness. Satraps were more unruly, court factions fought for influence, and the central authority seemed less decisive. It was ripe for a new force. That force arrived in the form of a young Macedonian king, Alexander the Great. Alexander crossed into Asia Minor in 334 BC. He defeated Persian satraps at the Battle of the Granicus River. The next year, he faced the massive army of King Darius III himself at Issus. Alexander's tactical genius and the ferocity of his Macedonian phalanx shattered the Persian army, forcing Darius to flee. Alexander then methodically conquered the Persian heartlands, taking the key Phoenician port of Tyre after a brutal siege, capturing Egypt, where he was welcomed as a liberator, and finally marching into Mesopotamia. The decisive battle came at Gaugamela in 331 BC. Once again, Darius III fielded a colossal army, but once again, Alexander's tactics and the discipline of his troops prevailed. Darius fled and was later murdered by his own nobles. Alexander captured the Persian capitals of Babylon, Susa, and the magnificent Persepolis, which was famously burned, whether by accident or as a deliberate act of symbolic destruction is debated. With Darius dead and the capitals taken, the Achaemenid Persian Empire was effectively extinguished. Alexander declared himself the new king of Asia. So, what happened to the Persian Empire? Alexander conquered it. But the story doesn't end there. Alexander died young in 323 BC, and his own empire fragmented. Out of the chaos in Iran and Mesopotamia arose the Parthian Empire, 247 BC, 224 AD, and later the Sasanian Empire, 224 to 651 AD. These empires saw themselves as the heirs of the Achaemenids, reviving Persian language, culture, Zoroastrianism, and the title, King of Kings. They fought titanic wars with Rome and later Byzantium for centuries, preserving the idea of Persia as a major power. Even after the Arab-Muslim conquest in the 7th century AD toppled the Sasanians, Persian culture, language, and administrative traditions proved incredibly resilient. They profoundly influenced the Islamic caliphates that followed. Persian became a language of high culture, poetry, and administration across the Muslim world, from Turkey to India. The legacy of Cyrus's tolerance and Darius's administration echoes through history. The idea of governing a vast, diverse empire through a system of provinces, standardized laws and currency, and major infrastructure projects became the model for every major empire that followed, from Rome to the Mongols, and even influenced modern states. The Cyrus cylinder remains a powerful symbol of humane governance. Persian art and architecture influenced styles from Central Asia to India, think the Taj Mahal's roots. Stories from Persia, like those in the Shahnameh, Book of Kings, became classics. Even the word paradise comes from the Persian word paradisa, meaning a walled garden, the luxurious gardens built by Persian kings. The Persian Empire wasn't just a historical blip, it was a foundational civilization. It showed the world that immense size and diversity could be managed not just by fear, but by pragmatism, organization, respect, and incredible engineering. It connected continents, spread ideas, and set standards that shaped empires for millennia. The story of Persia is the story of the first attempt to run the world, and its lessons, both brilliant and cautionary, still resonate today. Thanks so much for joining me on this incredible journey through the rise and reign of the Persian Empire. It's a story that deserves to be told beyond the Hollywood stereotypes. If you found this dive into ancient history fascinating, give the video a thumbs up, it really helps the channel. What aspect of the Persian Empire amazed you the most? Their tolerance? Their roads? Their sheer size? Let me know down in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss our next adventure into the past. Until next time, stay curious, stay healthy, and keep exploring the amazing stories of our world.